What up? So, my son um, just finished writing something, and I just wanted to share it because it's hilarious. He's quite little. He's only just started writing. He's only 5, and he wrote, "For Mummy, I hope that you will come back. I miss you. I hope that you will come back. I love you. I hope that you will come back from France." His mother was in the room at the time. She's not going to France. Alright, but seriously, we just had our second session of our new campaign yesterday, and I got some thoughts. So I wanted just to share them with you while they're still fresh in my mind, kind of go through a bit of a blow-by-blow, things like that. So, overall, it was a pretty good session. Not as good as the first session, but I've had a lot worse. So I've had some truly terrible D&D sessions. So it's a low bar to cross, but it's all fine. Yeah. So if you recall, where we ended the first session was that we were in the middle of a kind of dream sequence, and we had all taken control of characters that were not our own, and we were basically playing through a kind of cutscene, kind of flashback / vision quest. Not quite sure what it is really, and that's really where we started off. And I should say, going into this session, I think for most of us in the party, there were only really 2 things that we wanted to achieve out of this session. Thing number 1, we wanted the party to get together and actually meet each other. And 2, we wanted to get to level 1 because we all started at level 0. Level 0 means we don't have our proficiency or I guess some of our class features, I'm not sure. So at the end of this session, we are still waiting to meet up with each other, and we are still waiting to become level 1. If you told me before this campaign that I wouldn't be level 1 after 2 sessions, I would have said, that's impossible. I think in most campaigns I've played, we'd be level 2 by this point already. So, yeah, from that perspective, I guess we can say that the session was not very successful. If we're just simply taking it from the point of view of expectation versus reality. But we're not so clear-cut here, and we're trying to take a bit of a broader stroke on things. And if we're taking it from the point of view of, did we have a nice time? Then the answer would be, yes. Yes, we did. So let's go through. So the first part of the session, basically it was a session of 2 halves. The first half was finishing off that vision quest that we were on. Second half was going back to our individual character vignettes and getting us to a location where we will be meeting each other next session. And there I'm actually certain that the party will meet next session. I'm looking forward to it. So, as I say, we started as this little group of characters. Characters that we had no say in creating. They're just custom-made characters by the DM, very generic in shape and size. And we ended things. We just started an encounter with some harpies. So let's do this as good things, bad things, and just things that are neither good or bad. Right. So good things. Number 1, it was a really interesting arena that we were fighting in. The DM had drawn out a very nice map, multi-levels, which I always appreciate. So there was an upper level and a lower level, and there was a bridge across, across a canyon, and canyon's the wrong word. But yeah, you get what I mean. It was like a large room. There were 2 levels to things. It was nice, and there were lots of nooks and crannies, and things could be tucked away and hidden. And I did appreciate that. Good thing number two, despite how generic our party was, we did have a lot of fun with it. We ended up kind of implanting our own characters onto these one-shot characters. So, for example, I think I was the one that kind of started first because I was like, I'm playing through a cutscene. I have no control. Beep, beep, boop, boop. I am a robot. Basically, I was like doing it very like I am a computer program. I am going to go through this section of the game. My name is Hugh-Man. I am Hugh-Man. So I was Hugh-Man. And the next one to kind of give themselves a personality was our paladin, who at one point he cast bless on us, and he just happened to say #blessed, and from that spilled out this whole alter ego where he was basically playing this kind of Instagram hit that was like on TikTok live streaming their entire fight, constantly taking selfies, everything like #blessed, like, comment and subscribe and sign up to my Patreon, and it was quite funny. And they were like this uwu cat with this like alter ego with the little cat ears and the constant like stream of hearts flowing up the screen. It was revolting. I hated it, and therefore I loved it, so it was great. Then the next one to be kind of named was Brad the Bard, who was a bard, although he named himself Brody, so I guess he's Brad Brody the Bard. And then finally we had our whirling dervish of daggers, who was Max Dagger, the Daggermancer. And he basically would like open up his coat and it was like full of daggers, and then when fighting he was just this whirling dervish of daggers. We were just kind of, as you can tell, not really taking it very seriously and just kind of making up our own characters for things. But that was nice. And the good thing number 3 is that the harpies themselves that we were attacking, they did behave kind of quite realistically, which was cool. And this actually segues into just the thing. Neither good nor bad, just worthy of observation, which was that our DM, rather than have all of the enemies attack at the same time with the same initiative roll, he instead rolled separate initiative for all of them, which did result in a very, very long initiative line, very long one, but at the same time did mean that there were kind of more breaks between enemy attacks. It was a little bit more chopped up, and actually overall probably amounted in a slightly more exciting combat, because things are constantly happening. Everything isn't just happening all at once, where it's just like the player characters wailing on the enemies, and then it comes to the enemy's turn and they just have like 20 goes all at once. So it's a very different approach to what I did when I was DM, where I just rolled everything together unless they were like a major monster, and then I'd have them stand on their own. Certainly harder for the DM to juggle. I think he built a rod for his back there. But, yeah, it was a thing, and it was nice. And as I say, it did result in slightly more, I guess, realistic behavior, that the harpies were a little bit more responsive to what the player characters were doing. So if one of the player characters would attack harpy number 1, then harpy number 2 would respond and swoop in and attack them, and then next player character would then come in. It was a bit more of a dynamic battlefield. The bad thing, well, obviously, other than the fact that it wasn't our own characters, the main bad thing was that I just didn't get to do much in the fight, and it kind of goes to it's a thought I have about D&D in general. Nothing against this campaign, nothing against this DM. I think the mechanic of incapacitation is nonsense. I absolutely hate it. I think taking away player agency is the worst thing you can possibly do in D&D. Basically, players want to play their characters, they want to do things. When it comes to their turn in the initiative roll, they want to be able to do a cool thing. Maybe they don't succeed in doing the cool thing, but they want to at least try. And so if you have a harpy whose ability is to sing a song and therefore bewitch the player and therefore attract that player towards them so that on their turn, all they can do is move towards the harpy, you're basically saying to the player, nope, you are missing this turn. And when you have an initiative order, which I've already said is very, very long, and you're sometimes waiting upwards of 15, 20 minutes before you next have a turn, to say to someone, you skip a go, you're basically saying to someone, you sit there in the corner and don't participate in this battle. Because, I mean, an entire battle, how many times around an initiative order do you go in the average D&D combat? Twice, 3 times through? On a really, really bad... On a really, really, really involved combat, you might go 4 or 5 times through an initiative order. I don't think I've ever seen it go further than that. 2 or 3 tends to be the normal amount that you go through an initiative order. If you are skipping one of those turns because you are incapacitated for whatever reason, that is nonsense. So in my own campaigns, when I DM, I deliberately choose monsters which do not have any abilities which remove player agency, because I think it's I hate it. I absolutely hate it. The other way around, if the player does something that removes the enemy's ability to attack, fine, whatever, it doesn't matter. I can always throw more enemies at the players, but you know, the players are there to play the game, and if you're saying to them, no, you can't play the game, then why are you there? You know, so that is a real mechanical flaw in D&D that I hate. So there we go. So anyway, we eventually got through the harpies. We cleared that room. I did get to do something in the end, to be fair, and it was quite nice because I threw a javelin at one of the harpies that was holding our friend. One of the members of our party wasn't here this session, which did dictate the way that things flowed a little. The harpy dropped that guy to the floor. He then got killed by Max Dagger. And then later, I was down on the ground, and I pick up my javelin again, throw it at them. It was a nice ending to things. It flowed nicely. I was a little bit salty that I lost my turn, but otherwise it went well. And then afterwards, we then went to another room. There was then a chimera. We then had another battle with the chimera. And at the end of the battle, there was this bright white light, and there was a voice that called out something like, now choose, flee, or step forth. And it said, claim mastery of the eternal ring. Something like that. And at this point, all of our characters wake up. And here is another bad thing, unfortunately. Because as we wake up, we basically get all of the vision in reverse. We're like getting flashbacks of the vision, and we're just left with this overall impression of a beach, and we have the image of the dragon. So when we wake up, we get fragments of the vision. It's all very blurry, and it's all kind of hidden from us. Like it's we only see bits of it, which is fine. But then you think, well, if my character doesn't actually remember in detail any of that cutscene that just happened, then why did you make us just play out that cutscene? If it's just for the benefit of us, the players at the table, rather than the characters, I mean, you could just do it as a voiceover. You could have just explained what we saw. Why make us play through it? You know what I mean? Like, because I kind of had to check it with the DM a couple of times. I'm like, so we don't really remember any of that going through the dungeon, fighting the harpies. You know, we don't really remember being human. We don't, the uwu cat, we don't remember these things. Oh, we get flashes of it. We have fragments of it. But the only overwhelming thing we have is this picture of a beach. Okay, got it. Why did we play through it? it is a bad thing, because we essentially spent the better part of an entire session on this cutscene for no reason, really. So that is a little bit kind of frustrating, because as I said, going into this, the one thing we want to play our own characters, the ones that we've created, the ones that we've made backstories for. But anyway, that's by the by. We had a break, and then we came back and we went into these vignettes, and at this point we went through each character individually, spent some time with them, and basically to explain how each character ended up at the beach. And in some cases it was very straightforward. Reswalin, our gnomish, our gnome rogue, who, if you recall, had just survived a shipwreck, and his section was actually, I think it was the best part of the entire session. It was so fun just watching him play this character, because I've only ever seen this player play kind of off the wall, strange characters before, where they're a bit doolally in the head, and they're like, oh, I stick a leaf to my head, now I'm camouflaged. It's that kind of thinking. But this person, very high charisma, smuggler, very high standards of living, and he ends up in this fishing village. He washes to shore, like the beginnings of Link's Awakening. He's been at sea for a long time. He washes up on the beach. Someone rescues him, brings him into a hut, and he wakes up in a very rustic, rural location. And his whole attitude is just like, this is lovely. And obviously he hates it, but he's pretending that he's very happy to be there. And it was just hilarious watching him interact with people, with the innkeeper. Then he went to see the mayor, trying to find out if there's any sort of life in this town whatsoever. Do you trade with people? Do you maybe have some sort of nightlife here? No, we just we're simple fisher folk here. Lovely. Yes, just fish, is it? Great. So yeah, it was hilarious. Really enjoyed that. But he was already in the village where he needed to be. Orgrim was a little bit more complicated. He was our Goliath, and he a Goliath lawyer, and if you recall, he was subject to a lot of racism, although I don't really understand why. I've been studying basically our DM was very clear to us that certain races in this world are subject to racism, because some are more common than others, fair enough, and those which are very uncommon or quite monster adjacent, such as, I don't know, lizard folk, for example, are very untrusted. People are likely to give them a wide berth because they are basically seen as monsters. That's fair enough. I basically had the same rule in my own game. I just didn't call it out as specifically. But the thing I don't get is that Orgrim is a Goliath, and according to the charts, which was provided by the DM, Goliaths are supposed to be in the top rank. They're supposed to be one of the most common races alongside human and elf. So I don't understand why his character is constantly being subject to like racist attacks all the time. Something doesn't quite add up there. I'm not sure what's going on. But anyway, he goes back to his normal life, and he, uniquely among the characters, was very driven by this vision that he'd had. He's like, I need to go and find out what this vision is. I need to find this location. He's a very clever guy, so he looked at a map. He rolled high on his intelligence check. He figured out where he needed to go, and he head off there. He hired those adventurers that rescued him, and he said, can you take me to this place? And they helped him go there. The really interesting thing on the way, though, was he did have a small interaction with his father, who is alive. I was kind of doubting whether he would be. And basically lied to him. He told his father that he was, he said that he hadn't had a chance to do the errand because he was attacked. That part is true. But then he says he was going to do it on Monday, and he was on his way to doing it. And then while traveling with the adventurers, he sent a letter to say that he'd been slightly delayed and he would be business is continuing smoothly, is his exact words. Not sure that would stand up in court if he was under oath, but very interesting to see the relationship there with his father. There's definitely something a bit odd there. He's a very well-moneyed individual. Yeah, something with his ring as well that he keeps playing with. A lot of clues being dropped there. I do like the way that this person plays. And then there's me. So my character, uniquely among any of them in the party, is very driven by, I think, a sense of right and wrong, and he feels very attached to his home. His home was attacked by this Cyclops in the first session, and so he's very keen to try and help in any way that he could, shore up the defenses, help with all of the kind of refugees that have come to the manor house, these sorts of things. And basically he was given short shrift, told, no, we don't need your help, go back to doing your duties, everything's taken care of. So, for the most part, this is absolutely fine. It was played correctly. It was definitely the way it would be. And so then, my character's a bit like, I don't know, he doesn't feel good about this. He's looking around at the defenses in the village. It doesn't seem that anything's improving. Doesn't seem to be more guards. He's concerned that we're setting ourselves open for another attack. This attack came out of nowhere. Where did it come from? He wants to be useful, and so he asks around and talks to people. He finds these rangers that are in town who tell him that there's a lot of monsters out there, and he says, "Oh, where are those monsters?" And they say, "Oh, they're over this way." So he's like, "Okay, I'm going to go and investigate." And so he leaves a message for the Baron via the groundskeeper Galen, and he says, "I'm going off to investigate these rumors. I will be back." And while he's off looking, he goes off, he follows the tracks, he finds where all the monsters congregated, and most of the monster tracks go right back to the village. So he turns back around, he goes back to the village, and all this time I'm kind of thinking, how am I actually going to end up by this beach? Because my character has no inclination to investigate. But anyway, he gets back to his town and he finds that it's been attacked again, this time by lots of Cyclopses. And there was a little bit of very obvious railroading at this point, which was a bit of a shame, in the sense that it was almost like in a video game where you hit like an invisible wall and it's like you can't go any further. And it was very clearly like, nope, there are no survivors, the village has been completely flattened. You look inside, there's like 8 Cyclopses, rolled really low on my stealth, but it's like, nope, they still don't see you. Okay, great. Is the manor house okay? Yes, the manor house is okay. Can I get to the manor house? No, you can't get to the manor house. The way is blocked. Can I go around somehow? I know the area. I'm a local. No, you can't go around. Is there anyone that I can see? Are there any survivors? Nope, there are no survivors. There is no one you can help. The village has been flattened. You cannot go back to your hometown. That's where my character would want to go. He would want to go there and help rebuild and help rescue people. Nope, there is no one to rescue. You cannot go back there. There is an invisible wall. So that's all a bit frustrating. But it wasn't a major thing because I was able to make a workaround in my head, which is basically very quickly afterwards, he did actually manage to find one of the guards who had survived just long enough to give some info. and he dropped the idea that there was a safe house, a safe location, where some of the survivors, including the Baron, might have fled at the first sign of the attack. Now, my character had never heard of this safe house before, or this safe location, but he was like, "Which way is it?" And of course, the guard dies before telling him. And so my character is then like, "Well, maybe everyone's got to this safe location. I need to go and find it." So that now is my character's motivation. He's going to try and find this safe house, this safe location, and he's going to try and see if anyone actually survived from his town. And lo and behold, he works his way to the coast. There's a few villages nearby. One of them is by the sea. He goes there. That's the village where he needs to be. So it kind of makes sense. I can justify it in my head. And now at least it makes sense. I see the seaside. It's like, wow, this is the place from my vision. Maybe this is where the safe house is. And so I'm going to go into that town and I'm going to be asking around. That is the thing I'm going to be doing next session, is trying to find out what happened to the survivors of the attack on my town. Presumably they would have heard about it. I don't know, but I'm going to try and find out. So that was the entire session. And as I say, it was, in terms of moving the needle forwards, it didn't really. We are basically, as a party, in exactly the same position that we were at the end of the first session. Obviously, a lot of interesting stuff happened along the way. I think there's a lot of really interesting character stuff, but I really, really, really want to meet up with the rest of the party. I think the DM wants there to be a full house. He wants everyone to be present, because in the moment that the party gets together, something big is going to happen, which is then going to kickstart the entire journey, and that's when we're going to level up. And so my guess is that the next session we're going to start with the character who wasn't here this session, and we're going to see his little vignette, and then finally the party will get together, we'll get the big thing, and we will level up to level 1, and then finally the adventure will begin. So yeah, it's it was fun overall. I enjoyed myself. It does feel a bit frustrating. There is a little bit of a sense of that we're just treading water, but overall, a lot of fun, and I can't wait to interact with some of these characters. I think there's some very interesting people in the party. I just hope that the DM gives us space when the party does finally get together, where we can kind of build bonds a little bit, because it's kind of like it's the D&D equivalent to Blue Balls right now. It's like we want to release our load. We want to get together and meet each other, and do all shenanigans. So yeah, let's see how it goes from there. But for now, enjoyable, still enjoying myself, still having fun. Good way to spend a Monday night. And so I will update again next time.